Not their trip. Mine. Not Florence. But maybe somewhere closer. A weekend in a cabin. A day trip to the coast. A museum I hadn't visited in years. A cooking class. Something that was for no one else's benefit but my own. It didn't have to. Be big. It just had to be mine. Later that night, as I lay in bed, I received a message from Julia. No greeting, no emoji. Just, "We got here. Hotel's fine. Thanks again for everything." I read it twice. Then I turned off the phone. Not out of anger, out of peace. Because for once I hadn't done everything. And still, the world turned. The plane took off. The hotel stood. They got there. Without me solving it, I slept deeply that night. No guilt. No wondering. Just quiet. The kind that heals. The morning they came back, I was in the backyard trimming the rosemary bush. It had grown, wild in the weeks they were gone, stretching out in all directions, as if it too had forgotten the rules of how small it was supposed to stay. I liked that. I wasn't in a rush. I wasn't looking at the clock. The taxi pulled up just before noon. I heard the crunch of wheels over the gravel and the sound of Mark complaining about the heat. Their voices were loud, familiar, like the background hum of a television left on. But I didn't go greet them. I didn't open the door. I stayed exactly where I was, clipping herbs and shaking the dirt from my gloves. After a few minutes, I heard the front door open. Suitcases rolled in. Keys dropped on the counter. Then silence. Maybe they expected to see me in the kitchen. Maybe they thought I'd left a note. Or maybe, just maybe, they weren't expecting anything at all. I didn't care. I went inside through the back. The house smelled like them again. Their perfume, their fast food wrappers, the noise they bring with them. Julia saw me first. "Oh, hey, Mama." I nodded. "Welcome back." She smiled, unsure. "The flight was long." Mark chimed in. "Food was crap," Ava added. "We missed decent coffee." I poured myself a glass of water. No one asked what I'd been doing while they were gone. No one said, "How are you?" Instead, Julia pulled out her phone. "I'll show you some photos later. Florence was packed but beautiful. You would have loved it. Would have. As if loving it now was no longer possible." I sat at the table and listened as they unpacked the stories. The gondola ride, the missed train, Ava getting food poisoning from street gelato. I smiled in the right places. But inside, something felt off. Not broken, just shifted. I wasn't bitter. I wasn't jealous. I didn't feel left out. I just didn't feel included either. And strangely, that was okay. Later that evening, Julia came into my room holding a small bag. "We got you something." I took it. Inside was a fridge magnet that said, "Firenze," in curly gold letters. It was pretty. Light. Souvenir weight. "Thank you," I said. She hesitated. "We really did think about you a lot." I nodded again, not to be cold, but because I knew she believed that, in her way. And maybe she did. Thinking of someone isn't the same as caring for them. Remembering someone in passing isn't the same as respecting them in presence. That night, as they settled in and caught up on shows, I sat in the guest room, my old sewing space, and opened my laptop. I searched for a retreat center 2 hours from home. Nothing fancy. Just a cabin, trees, a place that had space for art, for walking, for silence. I found one. 3 nights, meals included, midweek, discount, 1 spot left. I booked it. Not with guilt, not with apologies. Just a click. A decision. The next morning at breakfast, I told them, "I'll be away for a few days. Just a short trip." Julia blinked. "Oh? Where are you going?" "A retreat," I said. I wanted a change of scenery. Mark frowned. You okay? I smiled. Yes. I just want some time to myself. They looked at each other, confused, as if I'd said something in another language. I had spent my life orbiting around them. My wants, my time, even my rest had been coordinated to their needs. And now, I had broken orbit. They didn't know what to do with that. The day I left, Julia offered to help with my bag. I let her. As we walked to the front door, she said, You sure you don't want company? I looked at her. Yes, I'm sure. She nodded, quiet. Then she said something I didn't expect. You seem different. I stopped. I am, I replied. Not to be dramatic, not to prove anything. Just to state the truth. She didn't ask more. I kissed her cheek, hugged Ava, nodded to Mark, and then I left. I drove for 2 hours with the windows half down, the breeze pulling at my hair. I stopped once for coffee. Black, no sugar. I sipped it slowly, watching people walk by. People who didn't know me, didn't expect anything from me, didn't carry years of assumptions in their voices. It was liberating. When I arrived at the retreat, a woman greeted me with a smile and showed me to my cabin. It was small, with a window that looked out at a row of pines, a bed, a chair, a kettle. Enough. I spent the afternoon walking trails, picking up leaves, breathing without checking my phone. I painted for the first time in years. Not well, but freely. And that night I slept with the window open, the night air brushing my face. No one called. No one needed anything. And I didn't feel forgotten. I felt free. When I returned home, the lights were on, but the house felt quieter than when I had left. Mark's shoes were by the door. Julia's coffee mug was on the counter. Ava's scarf hung over the back of a chair. It was all familiar, ordinary. But I had changed. I set my bag down slowly, not rushing to tell anyone I was home. I took my time putting things away. I didn't feel the need to step into their space. I had just spent 3 days in mine. That night I made tea and sat at the kitchen table alone. No one asked me how the retreat had gone. No one asked what I had seen or learned or felt. There were a few passing comments. Glad you're back. Or, hope it was relaxing. But nothing that touched the surface of who I had become. And for the first time, I didn't mind. I didn't need them to understand, because I understood. I resumed my routine slowly. I cooked when I felt like it. I no longer offered to run errands. I went for walks in the mornings. I brought home books from the library again. I took my time. And something strange happened. They began adjusting, not all at once, but subtly. Mark started making his own breakfast. Ava began doing the laundry without asking where the detergent was. Julia spent more time in her room, quiet. One evening I overheard Julia on the phone. Yeah, she's been different lately. Not in a bad way, just she doesn't hover anymore. She didn't know I was listening. But that word stayed with me. Hover. As if I had spent years floating around them. Weightless. Watchful. Ready. And now, I had landed somewhere else. A week after I returned, Julia knocked on my door. It was late, almost bedtime. She stepped in, holding something in her hands. A small notebook. I found this in the drawer, she said. I didn't read it. It has your handwriting. It was my old journal. I had left it on the nightstand at the retreat and must have tucked it into my laundry pile when I got back. I took it from her, ran my fingers over the worn cover. Thanks, I said. She sat down on the edge of the bed, not in her usual confident way. There was something gentler about her tonight. "Mama," she said slowly, "I don't know what shifted, but I see it, and I know we've taken a lot from you. I mean, I always thought you didn't mind. You never said no. I didn't know how to," I said, calm, honest. She nodded. Her eyes were wet, but she didn't cry. "I think I forgot you were your own person. I didn't respond right away. I wanted to let that sentence breathe. Then I said, I forgot too, for a long time." There was silence, but it wasn't tense. It was shared. Before leaving, she turned and said, "I hope you keep doing what you want. I really do." I smiled. "I will." That weekend, I went to a bookstore I used to love. I bought 3 novels, a journal, and a soft wool scarf in a color I'd never worn before. I had lunch alone at a little bistro and took my time walking back home through the park. No rush, no errands, just the pace of someone whose time belongs to herself. On Sunday, I was watering the plants when Julia appeared behind me. "Hey," she said, "we're all going to have dinner at Ava's mom's next weekend." I waited. She hesitated. "We'd love for you to come, but if you're doing your own thing, that's okay too." I nodded, smiling. "Thank you for telling me." It was the first time in years that an invitation had come without expectation. I hadn't decided yet whether I'd go, and that, in itself, was the change. That night, I took the Ferenzi postcard out of my purse one last time. I had carried it for so long, a symbol of what I hoped for, to be wanted, included, seen. I walked out to the garden and quietly tucked it between 2 pages of my journal, not as a memory of what I didn't get, but as a reminder of what I had finally learned. I'm not the hotel room they forget to thank me for. I am not the suitcase they borrow and never return. I am not the card that pays for their adventures. I am not the background of their lives. I am the woman who said yes for years, thinking it was love. And now, I am the woman who says no, not out of bitterness, but out of knowing what love should feel like. I still love them, but I also love myself now. And that has made all the difference. All the difference. I was standing by the sink, peeling carrots, when Julia said it. "We're planning a trip to Italy this summer. Florence. Maybe Rome. Mark says if we book now, we can get a great deal." The peeler slipped a little in my hand. Italy. I had dreamed of going there my whole life. I turned around, half smiling. "Florence," I said. "I've always wanted to see the Duomo. Maybe we could—" Julia didn't even look up from her phone. "Mama, this trip might be a bit much for you. Lots of stairs, cobblestones. It's not easy walking around all day in the heat." I paused mid-peel. My heart dropped just a little, but I forced a small nod. "Oh, I see." She didn't say it to be cruel. That made it worse. It was like my exclusion was an act of love or logic. Like they were doing me a favor. Mark chimed, in from the table. "Yeah, and it's gonna be really hot. You hate the heat, don't you?" "I do, but I hate being left out more." They went on talking like I hadn't spoken. Flights, rental cars, hotels with rooftop views. I rinsed the carrots, cut them, added them to the pot, then the chicken, then the rice. I moved mechanically while they planned around me. By the time I called them to the table, the trip was halfway booked. Julia wanted to do wine tastings in Tuscany. Mark wanted to rent a Vespa. Ava, my daughter-in-law, said she found a boutique hotel with Instagrammable bathrooms. I smiled like I was part of the moment, but inside, something tightened. While they ate, I sat quietly. I didn't want to interrupt again. It wasn't always like this. When they were little, they wouldn't make a single decision without me. Every school trip, every holiday, every lost tooth or scraped knee. Mom, what do? I was the center of everything. After their father left, I held it all together. I skipped meals so they could have what they needed. I borrowed money to keep them in school. I never let them feel how poor we really were. I thought that meant something. I thought they'd remember. But now I'm just part of the furniture. They don't even realize they're excluding me. I've become invisible. Not through cruelty, but through comfort. I'm always here, always reliable, always giving. And now, they don't even look my way, unless they need something. After dinner, I washed the dishes while they sat on the couch comparing Airbnb listings. Julia shouted, "Mama, remember when you almost passed out in Miami because of the heat? That's what I mean." They all laughed. I dried my hands slowly with a towel, the sting of their laughter digging deep. I remembered that trip. I was recovering from pneumonia. I didn't say anything back then either. And I had paid for that whole vacation. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying their words. Not just what they said, but how they said it. How easy it was for them to dismiss me. How natural. I kept thinking about all the times I walked through snow so they wouldn't miss school. How I sold my wedding ring to pay for Mark's college books. Julia never knew I gave up a surgery so she could go on her senior class trip. I've done stairs. I've done heat. I've done pain. But I guess I'm too old now. Not old enough to stop helping, but old enough to be left behind. The next morning I woke up early and made banana pancakes with cinnamon, Mark's favorite. They were too busy talking about train tickets from Florence to Venice to say thank you. I drank my coffee without sugar, without milk, without flavor. Just heat. Then it came. Julia looked up from her phone. "Hey, Mama, do you still have that big suitcase with the wheels?" I turned. "The black one?" "Yeah." "I was wondering if I could borrow it. Ours is too small, and Mark wants to bring his camera stuff." "Of course. I was useful again." "For storage," I nodded. "Sure." But something in me shifted. I went into my room and opened the closet. There it was, the big suitcase. I pulled it out and sat on the floor, staring at it. Next to it, tucked behind some blankets, was a small wooden box. Inside, I kept old travel brochures. Rome, Venice, Amalfi. A postcard of the Duomo in Florence. I had bought it at a garage sale nearly 20 years ago. It was supposed to be our trip. Someday. That's what I always told myself. Someday we'll go. All of us. A family trip. I held that postcard and looked at the bright blue sky over the cathedral. I imagined standing there, hearing the bells, holding gelato. But I wasn't going. Because they said I couldn't handle it, and the worst part was, I believed them for a moment. I actually accepted their reasoning. I smiled and nodded like I agreed I didn't belong. Later that afternoon, they left to go shopping for travel accessories. I stayed behind. I went to the backyard, sat under the old tree, and just listened to the breeze. That's when it hit me. They weren't being intentionally cruel. They just didn't see me anymore. I had become part of the background. The person who answers the phone, pays for things, babysits last minute, lends suitcases. The woman who once built a life from nothing was now treated like she couldn't climb stairs. And yet I still peeled carrots. I still made pancakes. I still nodded. I realized I was part of the problem. So I did something small, something invisible. Even that evening while they were out, I took the postcard and put it in my purse. Not the suitcase, the postcard. Because I needed to remember that once, I had dreams. I needed to remind myself that I mattered, not just as a helper, but as a person, a woman. And for the first time in a long time, I let myself wonder what it would feel like to go somewhere, alone. It had been 3 days since they told me I was too old for the trip, and in those 3 days, no one had asked if I was okay with staying behind. No one brought it up again, as if it had been settled. And maybe for them it had. For me, something was still unsettled. Something sharp and invisible was moving beneath the surface. I didn't speak about it, not to Julia, not to Mark, not even to Ava. I just moved through the house like usual, cooking, folding, listening. But inside I was quietly unraveling. On Thursday, while I was making tea, Julia came into the kitchen, with her laptop under one arm and a forced smile. "Hey, Mama, quick question." That tone. I know that tone. It always comes with a request. She sat at the table and opened her laptop, tilting the screen toward me. "We found this perfect hotel in Florence, right near the Uffizi Gallery. Look, rooftop, terrace, free breakfast, and there's even an elevator, so you would have been fine." She said it lightly, like a joke. I just nodded. "It's nice." She tapped the screen. "Anyway, here's the thing. They're offering a big discount, but only if we book today." I waited. She cleared her throat. "And Mark's credit card is maxed right now. Mine's a bit tied up too." Another pause. "So I was wondering if you could book it with your card, and we'll pay you back before the bill is due. Like we did with the cruise, remember?" "Yes." I remembered. They never paid back the cruise, or the wedding deposit for Ava's cousin, or the down payment for Mark's used car, or the new couch that everyone would enjoy. I looked at the screen again. Rooftop view. City lights. Something tightened in my chest. "Julia," I said slowly. I thought I wasn't going." She blinked, surprised by my voice, maybe because I rarely used it in moments like this. "Oh, of course you're not. I mean, we didn't want to burden you with the long walks, and it's summer, and the flights are tight, but this is just about helping with the hotel. That's all? That's all, just a transaction, just the card, not the woman behind it." I stirred my tea. "You need my card, but not my company?" She laughed, but it sounded nervous. "Mama, don't be like that. You know we love you. It's just, this is a different kind of trip. A different kind of trip. A kind I wasn't allowed to be part of. Unless I was paying for it." I could feel my pulse in my throat. She looked at me, waiting. I knew the pressure wasn't loud, but it was there. Quiet and heavy. She was already planning on me saying yes. "I'll think about it," I said finally. Her face changed, just for a second. But then she smiled and kissed the top of my head. "Thanks, Mama. I knew you'd understand." And then she was gone. Gone, like all the times they took what they needed and moved on, leaving me with silence. I sat there for a long time, my tea cold, the screen of her laptop still glowing beside me. I opened the card app on my phone. My limit wasn't high, but it was enough to cover the hotel. I could have done it right then. But I didn't. Instead, I closed the app and went outside. The air was warm, but not unbearable. The kind of summer evening that makes you feel like something is about to change. I sat on the front step and looked down the street. Kids rode bikes. Neighbors watered lawns. The world moved on. And for the first time in a while, I let myself think without guilt. I thought about the time Julia called me crying because her electricity had been shut off. I wired the money before even asking why. I thought about the time Mark lost his job and came back home for 6 months, eating my food, watching my cable, never saying thank you. I thought about all the birthdays I spent alone, all the Christmases where I was handed the wrapping paper to throw away, all the family dinners where I sat in the kitchen while they posted selfies at the table. I wasn't angry. I was tired. Tired of always being available, useful, invisible. They loved the things I provided. Meals, comfort, stability. But not me. I was never asked what I wanted, only what I could give. Later that night I made dinner. Roasted vegetables, chicken thighs, mashed potatoes. No one said anything special about it, but they all ate. While they talked about what outfits to pack and whether they should book a food tour, I cleared the plates and washed the dishes. And then, when the kitchen was empty, I sat at the table alone and opened my notebook. I used to keep a journal. I stopped years ago. But now my hand moved on its own. I wrote, "They see my value in numbers, not in presence. I am their solution, not their person." I stared at that sentence for a long time. Then I wrote another. "I don't think they know who I am anymore. It hurt to write it, but it felt true." When I went to bed, I turned off my phone. No notifications, no buzzing, just quiet. And for the first night in a long, long time, I didn't cry. I didn't toss. I didn't beg the universe to make them love me louder. I just breathed. And in the dark, I knew something had started. Something small, but solid. Not revenge, not bitterness. Just the seed of a boundary. Saturday morning arrived with the same rhythm as always. Coffee first, then laundry, then the grocery list. The house hummed with routine. Mark had left early with Ava to pick up a few things for the trip. Julia was in the guest room, packing. She didn't say good morning. It wasn't unusual. But it felt heavier now. By mid-morning, I heard her in the kitchen. "Mama, we're almost done packing," she said cheerfully. "Just waiting for the confirmation email for the hotel. Did you get a chance to book it?" She didn't say, "Can you?" She said, "Did you?" Like it was already done. Like I was a formality. I folded the towel I had in my hands a little too tight. "I haven't had a chance to look at it yet." She paused, her smile fading slightly. "Well, we kind of need to finish booking today. The deal expires tonight." I didn't say anything. I just nodded and returned to what I was doing. When she left the room, I stood there in the silence. That kind of silence where everything you didn't say echoes louder than words. I went to my room and opened the drawer where I kept my credit cards. I picked up the blue one, the one I used for emergencies. Birthdays. Medical bills. Rent for her hat. Mark that time he couldn't pay. I held it for a long time, not looking at it, just feeling it. That little piece of plastic had more access to my family than I did. It could go to Italy. I couldn't. That afternoon, I sat in the backyard with an old photo album. I hadn't opened it in years. The leather cover was cracked at the corners. Inside, the pages were yellowed, but the photos were intact. There we were. Julia, 8 years old, holding a suitcase almost as big as her. "Class trip to Washington," I had written underneath. I remembered how excited she'd been. I also remembered working a weekend shift at the hospital, just to cover the cost. Double hours, no lunch breaks. Next page. Mark at 15, standing beside his second-hand car, grinning like he'd won the lottery. He didn't know I'd taken out a small personal loan to help him buy it. I was still paying it off when he sold the car a year later for half its value. I flipped the pages slowly. Vacations, school plays, proms, hospital visits, all of it funded, supported, or emotionally carried by me. And yet I was now a piece of furniture in their eyes. Convenient, useful, replaceable. Around sunset, Julia came to find me again. "Mama, seriously, we need to book the hotel. Can you just log in and do it? I'll Venmo you next week." I looked at her. Really looked. She was wearing her new travel shoes and a wide-brimmed hat, like she was already halfway there. I wiped my hands on my skirt. "No," she blinked. "What?" "I'm not going to do that." She laughed, assuming it was a joke. "Come on, Mama. It's just a temporary thing. You always help." "That's the problem," I said. She stopped smiling. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't scold. I just stood there, finally letting the truth settle in the air. I always help. I always say yes, even when it costs me things you don't see. But this time, no. She opened her mouth, closed it. "You said I was too old to go," I continued. "Too fragile. But I'm not too fragile to pay." "Mama, that's not fair." "No," I interrupted. "It's not. That's the point." She looked stunned, uncomfortable, a child caught in a truth too big to dismiss. "You didn't even ask me how I felt about being left behind. You assumed I would understand. And I do. I understand exactly how little I matter when you don't need something." "I didn't mean—" "I know you didn't mean. But you did." The silence that followed wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, dense, final. She didn't argue. She didn't apologize. She just turned and walked back into the house. I stayed outside, and in that moment I realized I had finally taken something back. Not my youth, not my place on the trip, but my Noma real firm, honest no. The kind of no that only someone who has said yes too many times can understand. That night, no one spoke much. Julia avoided me. Mark didn't bring it up. Ava smiled politely at dinner but didn't ask about the hotel. They were quiet, not angry, just adjusting. And I was quiet too, but not out of fear, not out of sadness, out of peace. I went to bed early. No texts, no requests. Just me and the postcard from Florence, still inside my purse. Before turning off the light, I took it out again and looked at it. It no longer hurt to see it, because for the first time, I wasn't pretending I'd be in that picture with them. I wasn't holding on to the fantasy. I was making room for something else. The house had never been quieter, not in the peaceful way, but in that fragile, cautious silence that sits between people when something true has been said, something that can't be unsaid. After I refused to book the hotel, no one brought it up again. Julia didn't ask about the credit card anymore. Mark didn't mention the itinerary. Ava kept her conversations short, polite, and carefully neutral, like I was now someone to be handled delicately. They tiptoed around me. Not with fear, but with discomfort. I noticed it in the way Julia barely made eye contact, in how she texted Mark while sitting 2 chairs away, whispering like I couldn't hear the clicks, in how Ava suddenly offered to help with dinner, though she never had before. It wasn't guilt, not really. It was the kind of shame people feel when someone they underestimated draws a line. They weren't used to me having boundaries. They were used to my, of course, my, don't worry, I got it. My silent nods, my sacrifices packaged as motherly duty. Now I was different, and they didn't quite know what to do with that. Neither did I. On Monday, I walked to the park alone. It was a short walk, but the sun was gentle, and the streets were quiet. I sat on a bench beneath a jacaranda tree and watched a young woman help her toddler feed ducks. The child giggled every time a duck waddled closer. The mother laughed with her, patient and warm. I couldn't remember the last time someone looked at me like that, with softness, without need. I stayed there for almost an hour. No one called. No one asked where I was. When I came home, they were packing. The living room was a mess of open suitcases, charger cables, and guidebooks. They barely looked up. It was strange, to be in your own house and feel like a guest in someone else's plans. Mark asked Ava where his socks were. Julia asked if her sunglasses were still in the car. Not once did anyone ask how I was. And I didn't offer anything. I didn't say, "Do you need help?" I didn't ask, "Want me to hold on to your passport for safekeeping?" I just made myself a sandwich and went to the back porch. I sat there watching the light change on the garden fence, listening to bees move between flowers I had planted 3 springs ago. And for the first time, I wasn't waiting to be noticed. I was just being. That night, Julia came into my room with a folded sheet of paper. Her face was stiff, controlled. "I canceled the hotel," she said flatly. "We found another place that lets you pay at check-in. Mark used his debit card to hold it." I nodded. She hesitated. "I just didn't want you to feel pressured." I looked at her. Really looked. She wasn't angry, but she was unsettled, like something inside her was no longer sitting where it used to. "That's good," I said. "I hope you have a lovely trip." Her face softened for a moment, but then she turned and left. That was all. No apology, no acknowledgement of what had passed between us. But it was something. A crack. The next day, they left for the airport. Early. I didn't wake up to say goodbye. I didn't offer to drive them or check for forgotten passports. When I came downstairs, the house was empty. Still. I made myself tea and sat in the living room. The quiet felt different now. It didn't ache like before. It expanded. I noticed the dust on the bookshelf, the light through the kitchen window, the way the walls held the shape of my life. I opened my purse and took out the postcard again. The one of Florence. I looked at it, not with longing, but with a calm sense of release. I wasn't going to Italy, but I didn't feel left behind. For once I felt rooted. Later that afternoon, I took out the gardening gloves from the shed and started cleaning the front flower bed. The dirt was dry, the weeds stubborn, but the work felt good, physical, mine. A neighbor walked by with her dog. "Haven't seen you out here in a while," she said. "I'm reclaiming the garden." I smiled. She laughed. "Well, it missed you." That evening, I cooked dinner just for me. Nothing fancy. Lentils, roasted tomatoes, a bit of garlic, and olive oil. I set the table. Just one plate, one glass, a cloth napkin, a candle. Not for show, for care. I ate slowly, without a phone, without distraction, without being asked for something in the middle of my bite. And as the candle flickered, I let myself imagine.